Hi, welcome to Old School with Patrick Rooney, the podcast where old school wisdom is new again. I explore natural health, success, and freedom with my amazing guests. Patrick Rooney with Old School, oldschoolus.com, and the Old School podcast. I'm doing a whole series, as you may know, on success, and I'm bringing on people that can help you have better success in many areas of your life, especially now that we're getting out of the COVID situation. The riots are hopefully a little bit slightly in the rearview mirror, at least for some of us. And we're ready to do things. We're ready to make money. We're ready to have success and build up our lives, our families, and our community. So today I have a special guest, and his name is Joe Grande. And I'm going to bring him on in just a minute here. There we go. Hey, Joe.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Hear me all right?
Yeah, my centered okay?
You're good.
Okay.
You're good, Joe. All right. I wanted to welcome you, Joe Grande, to the Old School podcast with Patrick Rooney. And as I said, I'm bringing people on dealing with success right now. I want to see Americans have success. I've had enough of sitting around, listening to mandate after mandate, and that's not what Americans do to me. Americans are free, and we are having success, and pursuing our happiness is part of being an American. And that's why I have people like you on, Joe. So Joe Grande, and just to tell you a little bit about Joe, Joe Grande is an entrepreneur. He's been the owner of a printing and marketing company for the last 3 decades. So also for the last 20 years, he's been an investor in gold, silver, corresponding mining companies, and non-mainstream new technologies. So we'll get into that as well. What are these non-mainstream new technologies? Joe believes that you get out of life what you put into it. Amen. And has used this spirit not only for financial success, but also to build his health, character, relationships, and to foster overall personal growth. Very good. So we're going to get into all those things today with Joe. So Joe, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I want to talk about, first of all, I want to talk about gold. It's the first thing I thought about when wanting to have you on. Talking with your friend Greg about this, and he recommended you. He said, this guy studied gold and technologies like this like nobody else I know who's not officially in the industry, so to speak, right? So let's start out with gold as an investment. Why should somebody be interested in gold to begin with as an investment?
Okay, let me just first start out by saying that I'm not a financial professional. This is something that I do. It's a hobby to me, but it's really a second business. I'm very passionate about it. I can't tell you the number of thousands of hours studying it. Why invest in gold? Okay, let's just start what's happening with COVID right now, not as a medical problem, but as a financial problem. So what COVID has done is it's shut down our financial system, and it's making where it's very, very difficult for government to bring in tax revenue. Right. So if they cannot bring in tax revenue, what can they do to survive? What they are doing is they're printing money. In the old days, you would have to print money on a printing press.
Right.
In this day and age, it's just done electronically. So they are creating money out of thin air electronically.
Now, haven't they been doing that for some time now?
Yes, they have. So for about the last 50 years, or even longer than that, but the last 50 years when we got off the gold standard, the U.S. dollar has been the reserve currency of the world. So to do business across the world, most countries got to trade in U.S. dollars, especially if you want to buy or sell oil. Because of that, because there has been such a demand for U.S. dollars to do international trade, they've been able to print money in the United States and keep the dollar holding its value. In other parts of the world that don't have the luxury of the U.S. dollar being the reserve currency, when they print dollars out of thin air, they destroy their currency. So look at so many countries across the world, Zimbabwe, Argentina. These are countries that when they would just print money, print money, create electronically, and spend it, it destroys their currency, and their population ends up having to work much, much harder to make the same amount of real dollars.
So is that why their standards of living are so low around the world?
Yes, very much so. We've been blessed in America. We don't realize it. Although we do so many good things in America, by being the reserve currency of the world, we get much more value for our dollars that we spend. But also realize that in the last 100 years, what the dollar could buy 100 years ago compared to now, it's lost 99% of its value. So let's just look in our lives. I'm 56 years old. What did a loaf of bread cost 40 years ago? What did a car cost, 40 years ago, 30 years ago? Everything is going up in price. The reason why it's going up in price is because the dollar is losing its value.
Right.
And, that's why, governments, you talked about, should we have a gold standard or not? Governments don't want a gold standard, because if they have a gold standard, they cannot just print money and spend it to giving it to all their different constituents. Okay, these people want this program, we're going to give them the money. If you have a gold standard, you cannot create money out of thin air and have these types of programs. That's why politicians.
Are there anybody? I was going to get into the gold standard in a little bit, but now that we're on it a little bit, do any countries in the world anymore? I don't think anybody has a gold standard, right?
No one does. No one does.
So the gold standard is basically just, gold equals a certain amount of dollars, and it doesn't really fluctuate, right?
They say that if you look at what you can buy with an ounce of gold now compared to 100 years ago, you can buy the same amount of that product.
You can.
So if 100 years ago, it took you X number of gold coins to buy, the house you're living in. If you fast forward, you can use the same amount of ounces of gold to buy the same house you're living in.
Okay.
So what has happened is the house you bought has gone up in price in the last 40, 50 years, but it really hasn't gone up in value. It's still the same value. It's just that the dollar has lost its value. So you need more dollars to buy the same product.
Okay, so you're saying, as an investment, we're talking about two things here. One is an investment for people. The other thing is the dollar is worth, I get, if it's not connected to a gold standard, it's not connected to anything, right? I mean, it's just a piece of paper, technically, right?
Well, technically, but you have to realize we are America. We are the greatest country in the world. We have incredible ingenuity. We have, a populace that, works so very hard, comes up with new technologies, new inventions. So there is a reason why, other than, that people want to do business with America. Besides the dollar being the world's reserve currency, we are still the greatest country in the world. So there's a certain security. So if you have money to invest, do you want to invest it in a third world country where there's no rule of law? Or do you want to invest it in America where there is rule of law? Now, we're losing some of that rule of law. So there's multiple reasons why you want to invest in America with your savings. Okay. One is it's the world's reserve currency, but it's also we have rule of law more than any other country in the world.
Right.
And we also have business opportunities more than any other country in the world. So there's multiple reasons why, people do want to hold dollars, even though they are inflating their value away.
Okay, so they want to hold dollars to a point, but you're saying the reason to invest in gold is because the dollars keep losing value. And if you invest in gold itself, you won't lose the value of what you're investing in? Pretty much?
Yes.
Okay.
It's an insurance. It really, what it is insurance. So, as you save your money, if you just put it in the bank and they say, okay, we're going to pay you 2% interest, you're really not making 2% interest. You're really losing money because with the inflation rate, everything goes up in price. The things that you need, if you go to the supermarket now compared to a year ago, everything that you need has gone up in price dramatically. So your dollars are buying less. Right. So you can hold the same amount of dollars and a year later, they really have less value, although you're still holding the same amount.
Okay. So is there a point where the money, I've heard about certain societies where, you have to have like a whole a bushel of dollars, and you buy a loaf of bread at a certain point when an economy just really tanks. What is it that makes, at some point, it doesn't work anymore? I mean, the dollars lose more and more value. So where does it go when does it hit the point where it's just, what do they call it? Hyperinflation, I guess you'd say?
Yes. So you're asking the big question. There's a gentleman out there, his name is Jim Rickards. He's world-renowned financial man talking. He gets into a lot about gold. And he has relationships with many of the people in the Federal Reserve that make these policy decisions regarding the US dollar. And in his conversations with them, he has concluded that the biggest fear they have with all the spending they're doing right now with COVID is they don't know when they're going to hit that point you just spoke about. Like, okay, when is everybody going to say, okay, Americans are going crazy printing dollars and I don't want to hold them anymore. If you watch what the US dollar has done over the last 4 or 5 months, it's probably lost about 6-7% of its value.
Wow.
Now we have the fall coming, and you have to realize that the first, 3, 4, 5 months of COVID, things have stayed together because they gave people massive unemployment insurance. They gave small businesses massive amount of loans that are forgivable. That's all done now. That's all done. So over the next few months, you're going to have all these government organizations that are not going to have the tax revenue that they're used to having. So the question becomes, are they going to cut expenses? Are they going to start laying off people? Or is the government going to print more money, create more money out of thin air to keep everything going? I think they're going to do the latter. When they do that, then you're going to find that gold and silver are going to get, even do better than they're doing right now. And they've done very well over the last few months, because they are the insurance everybody in the world looks to protect their savings.
Okay. So how do the executive orders that Trump just put out, President Trump, so I just call him Trump, I don't think he minds, how do the executive orders that President Trump just put together, how are they seem to be things that would, I would think, positively affect the economy, but maybe in some ways they would help the inflation problem get worse too. So how do you say that?
Okay, so the way I look at it is, whether you're Republican or Democrat, I'm a Trump supporter. I voted for Trump.
Yeah, as am I.
Yeah, you have to look that when you do not have production, any dollars created are not created properly. So if a business is given money by the government and that allows them to survive for another 3 months, that's not healthy. If you allow the economy to open up and make businesses produce their own revenue on their own, that's what is healthy. So,
aren't we starting to do that though right now? I mean, I see businesses starting to open up. I see more and more people out there going out, and retail seems to be going up, real estate.
I agree with you. It's starting, but we're nowhere near where we need to be, in my opinion, to really get the economy going. So they're forced to, what Trump has done is he's come up with another $1.5 trillion in spending that is just money they're going to create, electronically out of thin air. So that's going to lead to the dollars we have in our pockets losing value. It's very difficult to have a perfect mathematical formula to say, okay, when this happens, this happens. But, we all know, big money knows across the world that all governments, all big governments, do not have enough revenue coming in to spend the way they have normally spent. So what they're all doing is they're creating the money electronically. That's why gold is a very good investment in this day and age to protect yourself.
Right. So that's why we've had all this inflation, because the economy has been so bad. They've been just pumping money into it, basically.
Yes.
Okay. So where are we going? So from here, you think it's very possible, or people are saying it's very possible, we may end up in a hyperinflation situation? Would it be hyperinflation or something else?
I don't think it's going to be hyperinflation. To do hyperinflation, to have hyperinflation, you have to have literally money given by the government, for all of us to spend on a daily basis. Okay. And it's not that out of control. Now, is it something that we have to be concerned with? Yes. Could it eventually get there if we get Joe Biden as president and he decides to bail out all the cities and the states across the country that have mismanaged their finances for decades? Yes. Right. But I don't think we're close to it, to be perfectly honest with you, in my opinion.
Okay. So where do you think we're generally going here? In other words, what is Trump trying to do? I mean, where do you think he's going with things? And do you think that's going to be successful? Like you said, the executive order is probably not going to be successful in a way. But on the other hand, somebody would have given them the money, right? Nancy Pelosi would have given more and more money than he would have given.
Please, I would have made the same decision that Trump made with the hand he has to play. But it's not the proper decision to make if it was made by people who truly love this country, who truly understand business and productivity. Okay. He had to do what he had to do, and he made the right decision. Now, although it's an illegal decision, he did what he had to do. The people on the other side of the table are not playing fairly, and I think we're in very special times in history. So I would have done the same thing that he did. The only way, we have to get the economy open again, and we have to let business do what it does best, create value. Government cannot create value. Business people create value. Businesses create value. They're doing everything they can, I think purposely, to destroy small business in this country. Because when you're a small business, I'm a small business person. I've been doing it for 30 years. I do not need the government to take care of me. I can take care of myself. I can now speak up. If I was in a position where I had to worry about what people thought I would be saying because it would get me in trouble, I couldn't do this interview with you. Yeah. Although, it's small, but I couldn't.
Hey, now it's small.
I have independence. And what that has allowed me to do is to live the life the way I want to live my life.
Yeah, it's like if you were an employee today, I mean, they've got the average employee in a position where they have to shut their mouth or lose their job for the most part, or be threatened to lose their job.
Yes.
So
I think what they're trying to do is purposely shut down small business. They want everybody to be, working for bigger companies where they never question government. They never question bureaucracy.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. And I'm hearing that Trump supposedly wants, to some degree, sees what's happening. He's well aware that the economy will collapse at some point. But he's doing what he's doing anyway, and he's hoping to usher in the gold standard. Okay. So what do you know about it? Do you think that's true? And how do you see that? I mean, do you think that he actually knows things are going to collapse? He's a smart business guy, obviously. And that he has the gold standard in place. I've heard, like with the Federal Reserve, he moved it to a different department, and he has a new lady coming in who's going to be running it. What can you tell us about what you think his plans are in that direction?
Okay. First off, I think we're going to have a gold standard, but it's not going to happen in an organized fashion like you're speaking of.
Okay.
I think what's happening is smart money across the world, and I like to consider myself smart money. I worked very hard to get where I am, to build my wealth.
Yeah.
We are getting into gold and silver because we understand what is happening, across the world. And not just in America, in every government across the world, the same thing is happening. They're debasing their currency. Yeah. So people like myself are watching this occur, and then we're going to gold and silver. You say, well, why gold and silver? Why not oil? Why not, grains? Why not real estate? The reason why gold and silver have always been the thing to turn to in the course of history is because, the natural forces of things just work, in an amazing way. And with gold and silver, there's only a certain amount of it. So it's impossible for governments to control it. And you're going to say, and I'm going to get into a little bit of that when you're ready, how they have controlled it for the last 30 years. But now they cannot control it. So what's happening is smart money across the world are saying, and it's not people talking to each other. It's just people making the decisions on their own. And there's just tens of thousands of them thinking the same way, millions of them. well, you know what? I need gold and silver to protect myself. And that's what's happening. And we're getting a natural gold standard. So people, to protect their wealth, are just doing it on their own. If you have to get, all the government bureaucracies across the world to agree on this, they're not going to agree on it in a way that would make me and you happy, because they're going to lose their ability to create money out of thin air and make the local populace happy, and kick the financial can down the road where we have to really do things right.
Okay.
They don't want to do things right.
So let's take on a practical level. Let's say more and more people get gold and silver, and I'm assuming that gold being the most valuable because it's considered throughout history very valuable, and then silver less so. But the way I picture silver, or there's things like junk silver, where it used to, was it pre-1965, I believe, where basically they had silver in the coin. I don't think there's any silver in the coins anymore at all, right?
There is not.
Okay, so what is gold for amassing, or is it at some point for trading for large ticket items? Silver for buying smaller items, or how do you see it playing out in an actual situation?
Well, many times over the course of history, silver has been, used just like gold as a monetary metal. So over the course of history, silver has been used very similar to gold. The reason why silver, I think, is going to be so valuable moving forward is right now gold is somewhere around $2,000 an ounce. How many people could afford to buy a lot of gold? Not many. Whereas silver, it's somewhere around a little less than $30 an ounce. Okay. And then also,
how do you buy something? How do you buy a loaf of bread with one thing of silver? It's like, give me the change. I mean, how are you going to do that?
Exactly. So if we ever do get to the point, which I hope we don't get to the point where things fall apart, so horribly, where we have to start using our silver coins to buy stuff, our gold coins to buy stuff, you can't really use gold. You would have to use silver.
Okay.
So
outside of that, it's just a hedge, basically. I mean, it's like a hedge against losing your wealth, period, during tough times.
Yeah, it's a hedge. For me, it's been a way. I saw this many years ago, and I saw this as a way not only to protect myself, but also to build my wealth.
Right.
Right now, this conversation we're having is being conversations like this is just happening by the minority, like 1%, 2%, 3% of the people across the world, next to no one. So, you may think you have a small podcast here, but you're light years ahead of major organizations in your thinking. We're still very early in this run. Now, I do think, the first thing you should be buying gold and silver for is to protect yourself. Yeah. But for me, I'm looking also at opportunities to make money by investing in them.
Okay. And you mentioned real estate. Isn't real estate also, obviously it's a finite resource also. Is there a negative, other than the fact it takes a while to sell it? You can't, it's not as liquid, but is there another negative to real estate out there in comparison?
Okay, the way I explain it to some of the young people in my life, there's lots of different ways to make money. You have to do what really works best for you. And if you're a person who's into technology, that works best for you, fine. Can you make money in real estate? Yes, you can. But I mean, in this day and age, so now with the decisions the cities made when we had the rioting to do nothing, they basically destroyed real estate in the cities, literally in a matter of 2 weeks. Yeah. 2 weeks. So who in their right mind wants to invest in real estate in the cities at this point in time?
Yeah, I think it's coming out my way now. I'm in the rural area, so.
Yeah. Next up, okay, office buildings. Let's, everybody needs a business, needs an office. Well, now with this COVID thing, does everybody need an office? No. Right now we're having a conversation, do we really need, an office? No. So, I've said, I'm very, very biased. I'll be honest with this. I think gold, silver, and the corresponding mining stocks are going to be the best investment of our generation.
Okay, let's get into that for a minute. And I remember there was a time a few years ago where mining stocks were not good because I guess part of that was because Obama was doing destroying so many aspects of business. Like he was hurting companies from even staying afloat. Is that kind of the way it went, right?
Well, when gold and silver pricing gets hit, so in 2011, gold and silver was at $50. and in March it got literally down to $12.
And what is it now? What is it now?
Now it's about $29, $30
Okay.
at this point. Gold got up to $1,920 in 2011, and it got down to a little over $1,000. Right now, it's at its highs. It's at its highs.
Why is there a discrepancy? I mean, almost $30 an ounce for silver doesn't sound very expensive to me. Why is there such a discrepancy there?
Okay, I'm going to get into a little bit of conspiracy here now.
All right, go for it.
Okay, so there's a group called the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, and they have been for the last over 20 years now. They've been trying to. They've done a fantastic job of educating people how gold and silver pricing has been suppressed by government, because in the history of the world, gold and silver has always been the barometer of a truly healthy economy. So 25 years ago, our government understood that, if we want to just print money and do things in an improper manner, we have to find a way to control the price of gold and silver, because otherwise it's going to wave the flag that we're doing crazy things. The US dollar is losing value.
Sure.
So what they did was they started trading gold and silver in the paper markets as a paper contract, not as physical.
Okay.
When they did that through paper contracts, they were able to control the price of gold and silver for the last 25 years. Whenever gold would go on a nice run, they would literally sell into the market massive amounts of paper contracts, not backed by any real physical in gold, and they were been able to suppress the price.
Okay.
But what has happened now is the people at the Gold Antitrust Action Committee have done such a great job over the last 20 years of educating people of this. Now, what people are doing is they're not buying the paper contracts anymore because they know it's all smoke and mirrors. They're buying the actual physical gold and silver.
Okay.
And in the electronic gold exchange, the COMEX in the United States, last month was the biggest amount of people taking delivery of gold ever.
Interesting.
So what's happening now is, and this is why the gold, in my opinion, is going to be the investment of our generation. It's not so much because it brings stability. Yes, we got crazy things going on. You want to own gold and silver because they're printing so much money. They're creating so much money out of thin air. And that is going to give you security. You want to do that. But the reason why is the powers that be have held the gold and price the pricing of gold and silver down for so long that people think it's a normal market now. It's not a normal market. It's a market that's about to take a slingshot. It's going to go like you cannot imagine. Very biased. I will tell you, I'm very, very biased.
But again, getting back to the silver question, it seems like the ratio is off. I mean, $30 an ounce seems pretty low to me for silver in comparison to gold skyrocketing.
Normally, for every ounce of gold coming out of the ground, you have approximately 15 ounces of silver coming out of the ground. So over history, you have normally like a 15-to-1 ratio. That ratio is way out of whack right now. But the reason why it's out of whack is because of the paper markets holding down the price of silver. We think that is beginning to end. So in somewhere around March 23rd, I believe it is the date, it was like the middle of March, silver literally got down to about $12 an ounce. As of
why are they able to hold silver down right now, but not gold?
Well, they're not holding either of them down now. But silver has gone from about $12, it was $30 a day or two ago. Okay, so it has gone up more than double.
Oh, how long did that take? And what period of time was that?
From somewhere around middle of March to somewhere around now.
Okay, pretty quick.
Pretty quick.
Okay. And, so moving up. Okay. Now let's go ahead. Finish that if you want.
So I think we're just seeing the beginning of it. So now they can no longer control pricing through the use of paper trading. People are buying real gold and silver.
Yeah.
That's why it is the perfect, that's why nature created gold and silver. So this way, there's no way to control, what politicians will print in money unless you have something like this, a barometer for people to see what they're really doing. And they've been able to shut that barometer off for the last 25 years. Now they can't shut it off anymore because people understand what's really happening. They're not playing the paper game anymore. They're buying the physical gold and silver, and it continues to go up. I hope it's a lot I'm throwing at you. I hope it makes sense.
It makes sense. Now, can a government, I started to allude to this earlier, can't a government attack mining because mining is a company? So can't they attack business and therefore attack the amount of silver or gold that's being mined from the ground?
Realize when they do that, what does that do? That limits the supply of gold and silver coming to the market. Yeah, and that's what happened with COVID. So they shut down a lot of the silver mines. A ton of silver comes out of Mexico and Peru. They shut that down for 3-4 months, and that has helped push the price of silver up because they haven't had enough physical supply. Half of silver goes in the industry. It's in all our smartphones and things like that.
Right.
So there's been a real demand for silver, and with the COVID shutting down a lot of the silver mines for a few months, that has really helped push the price of silver up.
Well, they can't really mess with it, gold. I mean, yes, they can try to shut the companies down, but all they do is drive the price of it up to begin with if they do that. Okay.
Yes.
So if somebody wants to get involved with gold, silver, or when you say precious metals, are we basically talking about just gold and silver, or are there some other precious metals?
There's a couple other precious metals, but the world thinks really,
right?
Yeah. I don't know anything about them, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm a gold and silver guy.
Okay.
And if you want to invest in gold and silver, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. The first way to do it, and this is how I started many years ago, is with collect coins. And they're called numismatics. I would not do that. You're basically paying a premium for the coins. I didn't know better when I originally started doing this, over 20 years ago. And I started out, buying collector coins, and I paid a lot more for them. So that is not.
So it's like a collector's thing. You're kind of getting into the zone of artwork or something where it's like collectors versus the actual value of the precious metal, right?
Yeah. So basically what they do, they take these coins, they're put in special packaging, and there's no scratches on them, things of that nature. And if that's your thing, coin collecting, fine. But if you're going to invest, for gold and silver as protection, I would not go the numismatic route to collect.
What route do you go?
Okay. The easiest way you can do it is you can just go to your local, coin store and buy them. But again, you have to be very, very careful because, if you don't know what you're buying, it's easy to have people take advantage of you. So what I would do is I would look at some of the, the larger dealers, Miles Franklin is one of them. The people out there I use, and I live in Pennsylvania. Not far from me is Trade in Delaware. Shop around, call 3, 4, 5 of these people and say, okay, if you just want to buy, physical gold and silver, you buy the 1 ounce American Eagles. They make them in gold and silver.
Okay.
They also make the 1/2 ounce, and they also make the 1/10 of an ounce in the gold. So you could just buy a coin, and you can have the coin shipped to your house. You could bury them in your yard if that's the way you want to go.
Most people do it, I would think, to put them in a safe or something like that. Or
Yes. And just don't do something that's obvious where somebody can come to your house and say, okay, here's the safe, And
Is there any privacy anymore with precious metals, or is that gone with the internet age?
When it comes to selling them, they got to report it. I don't know the rules, to be perfectly honest with you. Everything that I bought over the years, I've never sold anything.
Yeah.
To me, it's always been, an investment.
You're acquiring it and building wealth. So you would do that in terms of, is there any kind of break off in terms of, or is it just a personal thing of like how much gold you may buy, how much silver you may buy, in terms of, what do you call that, allocation, I guess you'd say, of how much of this, how much of that, or is there any, I guess, thoughts you have on that?
Okay, well, most people say you should, diversify in your investments, and you should have, nothing more than 10% in gold and silver. Mm-hmm. And some people say 20%. I break all those rules, to be perfectly honest with you. I am not one to listen to the mainstream. Okay, this is how you're supposed to invest. I think every person's different. You got to look at what works for you.
Well, Warren Buffett would say, I used to hear him say, he doesn't believe in diversification. He said, basically, get what you got, have it in a few things, and watch them real carefully.
To me, I think at different times in history, there's opportunities. I think if you would have gotten real estate 30 years ago, you could have basically just bought real estate and done nothing and made tons and tons of money. For me, I see gold and silver doing nothing but going up. Now, does that mean you should take everything you have and put it in tomorrow? No. You have to do your research. You have to be level-headed. You have to be able to make an investment and sleep at night. One thing about me is when I go to bed at night, I don't have any worries. I don't do anything crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. So, please go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if there's anything else you want to say about gold and silver, I was going to move on to any other investments and other things that you know about. But if you wanted to finish off gold and silver.
Now, there's a few different ways. So you can also buy a product where you can purchase gold and silver, like you buy a stock and they hold it for you.
Okay.
And I think that's the easiest way to do it. But there's a few different ways to do that. I'm just going to talk about each of them real briefly.
Sure.
Make sure when you do that, they actually have the physical gold and silver where it's there, okay? Some of the ETFs, the GLD for gold, the SLV for silver, in their prospectus, a lot of people say that they do not have to have the actual physical backing what you're buying.
Huh.
So be very, very suspicious about that. Make sure you get into a fund that has the physical gold and silver.
But is there a reason? I mean, I guess there's a reason for people to want to get something on an ETF or something, but it seems like when you want to get real money, it seems more natural to want to have the real money with you. I
think everybody's different. Me, I have a mixture. And it depends what your wealth is. If, some people have substantial wealth,
yeah,
and they want to, have, at different places. So everybody's different.
That's kind of a certain diversification in a certain way.
Yeah. And there's also, you could buy it in the futures market, which I would suggest not doing because that's the paper game I spoke about earlier. So you think you're buying gold and silver. Really, you're not. You're buying paper contracts.
Okay.
So be very, very suspicious about that. And then the last place is you could buy the mining stocks. But the mining stocks, you have to do your homework. You get great leverage with mining stocks. So if gold goes up $1, most likely your mining stocks are going to go up a larger percentage. And there's all different types of mining stocks, but it can get extremely, extremely risky. So be very careful.
Yeah, and you've got more to think about. I mean, now you're getting into a company. You're getting into regular stocks like that. You have to look at the company, and if the company's no good, you lose all your money.
Yes, and to me, I'm a business person. I love it. I love searching these companies out, trying to find them. When there's blood on the streets, nobody wants to own them. And it's a lot of fun for me, and you just get a great feel when you find something nobody else has found. And
do you have a way that you do that you look at a company? Is it a particular way?
I do not understand the technicals of gold mining very well. I'm a business person, so it has to make sense to me. It has to be in a good political jurisdiction where it's safe. Okay. It has to be where their drill results are good and experts say they're good. So what I do is I get multiple newsletters of people that I highly respect that very much understand, and they can say, okay, these drill results are good. And then you have to have good management that's honest, and you have to have, a reasonable share count. If they got, 500 million shares outstanding, it's very difficult to make money if you own, 100 shares.
By the way, how do you find these newsletters that are good newsletters? You've probably spent a lot of time looking at bad ones and good ones over the years.
Yeah. I've been doing this now for 20 years. I made a ton of mistakes. And I will tell you this, it's like anything in life, you got to work at it. and you got to find honest people. You find honest people, and that's when you want to get your refrigerator fixed, you want somebody you can trust.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with these newsletters. If somebody, saying, "Oh, I'm going to make it $10 million in a week," run from it. Don't walk from it. Run from it. There's a lot of risk involved, and I've just spent a lot of time going to trade shows.
You've gone through a lot of you've seen some bad ones, some good ones, and you just, at a certain point, you know who you can trust based on if they're telling you information that makes sense.
Exactly. There's nothing like experience. The one thing I will say is when you don't have a lot of experience, you got to rely on good newsletter people, and you have to understand the risk involved. If you're somebody who doesn't want a lot of risk, you go with the bigger companies, what they call the majors.
Okay.
If you want a little bit of risk, you go with the juniors or the medium-sized companies. If you want to make a whole lot of money and take a lot of risk, then you go with the exploration companies. But there's different segments, and it's a whole nother conversation.
So are there websites or newsletters that you may recommend in terms of knowledge for the person who wants to get in the game a little bit?
Yes. If people have a way to reach out to you, I could write something up that you could forward to them if they want to do that. It's something I want to think about and probably put in writing.
Also, I don't know if you want people to be able to get in touch with you if they, an email.
I'll give an email address at the end.
Okay.
If anybody has any questions, it'd be my pleasure to help in any way I can.
Sounds good. Okay. So, yeah, because that saves people a lot of time to know who they can talk to, and people that have been in the game for a long time. I mean, otherwise a person doesn't know. They're going to be green. They're going to get in. They're going to lose their shirt. If they don't know.
Yeah. I have to say, I made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah. And I guess that's part of success, right? Is just being willing to try and fail and get up again and do the Edison thing, right? You just keep trying 1,000 ways to make the light bulb.
Yep.
Okay. So in terms of any other types of investments that you have looked into, like let's say we talked a little bit before the show about things like Bitcoin, which you call, what is the name of Bitcoin? You call it also something else?
Cryptocurrency.
Currency. You were going to tell me a little bit about what you think of, because there's so many people that are into that. I know next to nothing about them, quite frankly, but there are people that really swear by these, and you were going to give me your take on that.
Okay, so let's just talk about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. Well, people are calling Bitcoin the new gold. So basically, what it is, it's a currency that it's in its own world, which mean you can trade. Anybody in the world can trade with each other. It's called blockchain. So the government does not have to be involved at all. So I can do a business deal with someone in a different part of the world, and I can send them 3 Bitcoins, and everybody in the world who's on that blockchain sees that I sent that person 3 Bitcoins.
Okay.
So, the problem with Bitcoin is that it's like being able to print money out of thin air. They can create Bitcoins out of thin air.
Wow.
And they say, well, you know what, Joe, they haven't done that. They have a set amount of Bitcoins. I agree with that. But the one thing, what you have to do is compare Bitcoin. Why Bitcoin compared to gold and silver? The government does not like competition on their dollars. Any government across the world does not want competition. So gold, when people start going to gold, it makes the US dollar look bad. Okay. And the way the government has controlled that, as I spoke about earlier, is through paper gold and silver contracts. They've been able to hold the gold and silver price down for years. But now Mother Nature has caught up and said, okay, we're not allowing that anymore because there's not enough gold and silver, and people are buying it, and it's forcing the price of gold and silver up. So now the government cannot control that anymore. But with Bitcoin, the government can shut that down tomorrow. They could literally shut it down tomorrow. So if Bitcoin ever becomes true competition to the US dollar, it'll be gone overnight. How do they shut it down? I thought it was something that was kind of like, what's the word? Not centralized, but they can shut it down yourself. Well, it's very simple. All you have to do is just change the rules on it, okay? first of all, you cannot have a lot of transactions. It's not like Visa or MasterCard where you can have a lot of transactions. It can only handle a very small amount of transactions. So at any point in time, tons of people have used Bitcoin, made money, never paid taxes on it. The government knows who didn't pay taxes on it. So all they have to do is they have the list ready to go. This is my opinion. This isn't fact. But at a certain point in time, they say, okay, we want Bitcoin to end, next month. And what they do is they just start the auditing process. And then they shut it down. Or they step into the electronic market, and through the use of, the different things they could do, they just disrupt the system. I just don't think it's a natural thing, and I think that when the time is right, the government will shut it down. Right now, it's an insignificant part of the financial system. They're watching it. The reason why they're watching it and they like it is because they eventually want their own cryptocurrency in the U.S. Because they want to track everything we do.
Right.
How do you do that? You do that through a cryptocurrency. So they, I wouldn't be surprised if the government didn't create Bitcoin, to be perfectly honest with you.
I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you, where did it come from to begin with, and where was the big push to all of a sudden out of nowhere? It seemed like one day I woke up and saw cryptocurrency and I never heard of it, and it's like, where'd this come from?
You know what? It's supposedly a gentleman, invented it. There's all sorts of stories out there. I don't know a whole lot about that, to be honest with you.
And it's funny. It's funny though that you're saying it's such a thing that can be controlled, because the way it's pushed is kind of like a freedom currency. I know, even people I know, friends that are like really into it, that think it's like a freedom currency.
Well, in China, when people were trying to get money out of the country because they were worried about the instability of China, people were doing it through Bitcoin. And what did the government do? And it stepped in and it put up roadblocks to not get the money out of the country. Okay. Now, they could track anything electronically, the government.
Yeah. That's what I would think. And again, I'm kind of like a real person. I'm into real stuff versus stuff through a computer, for the most part. I know we're talking through a computer here, but you know what I mean? And I tend to agree. As little as I know about this, just commonsensically, what you're saying, makes sense to me. And it sounds like you're on the right track about what you're saying about it.
There's a lot of different viewpoints. That's my viewpoint. A lot of people made a lot of money. And if you got in early, you made a whole lot of money. But, would I ever take a substantial amount of my wealth and put it in that? I would not. Yeah. Maybe it's my personality, but I would not.
Okay. So are there any other, mentioned other investments and things? Are there other ones we didn't cover that you wanted to bring up that you think are good investments?
Well, one I just want to, tell is more of a story, because I think it's good. Like, first off, in my opinion, when you're young, I'm 56 years old. I started my business when I was 27. And from the age of 27 to 45, I just worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. And I used to think, okay, how much longer can I do this? Do I ever get to really enjoy life,
Yeah.
But God gave me the energy and I had to drive, and I just kept going, going, going. But what I realized was, okay, I won't be able to do this my whole life. I want to start working with my mind. So I started taking my extra dollars, living below my, means, taking my extra dollars and investing, making my mind work for me.
Yes.
Now, it's funny. I could sit at my computer some days. I could be in the office, busy as can be, and I can make more money watching my computer hitting, refresh than I do running my business. It's a nice feeling.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you into a bum at times, but it's a nice feeling. So, what I would say to your listeners, the people that truly want to be independent, live below your means, take some of that extra wealth and invest it. And you don't always have to invest it. I'm talking about gold, and gold has worked for me. And I do think it's important for you to have a certain amount of your wealth in there to protect yourself. Yeah. But find that thing that works for you. And we all have different personalities. We all have different interests. People have made billions of dollars moving trash around. Yeah. All different things you can do, and whatever works for you.
Okay. That makes
sense. A little story for you, interesting story. So 3 years ago, I was at a conference that mainly spoke about mining stocks. And there's other companies there looking for investors. And I normally wouldn't pay attention to them because I was really strictly just interested in gold and silver mining stocks.
Yeah.
But as I'm there, they make people give 3-minute presentations, in the main hall between the bigger presentations. And I'm sitting there, and this company comes up and gives a 3-minute presentation on a new technology to clean water. And it's like an incredible technology. I'm like, if these guys are telling the truth, this is incredible. So to make a long story short, I went to the breakout session, and it was an amazing story they told. And then I did all my homework, and I started investing in this company. And this company has come up with a technology that can clean water in basically 1/6 the price of any other technology in the world.
Nice.
Now, it's still startup, still figuring things out. Well, all of a sudden this COVID crisis comes out, and they said, well, let's just see if we can block, our membrane can block the COVID. And sure enough, it can. So all of a sudden now we're pretty close to making face masks out of this. I know a lot of people have a problem with that, including myself. But the nice thing about these face masks can be used in real life for surgeries and things like that. They're the best face masks in the world now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And we're just starting to make them. And
so this is a company that you've invested in? Is that what you're saying?
I've invested in, yes.
Okay. Cool.
And my point is that, take life where it goes.
Right. And
when you find those opportunities, they're going to come out of nowhere. And, follow that intuition. And that I followed intuition, and haven't made 10 cents yet, but I'm hoping in the next 6 months to a year, I'm going to be able to pat myself on the back on that one and say, you know what, I found a good one, a real good one.
Well, the exciting thing about that, I remember I used to be interested in stock investing to some extent. And my favorite was always kind of like the Motley Fool type of, they're small, but, they may hit, and then you get like 100 to 1, I don't know, something about hitting the home run was exciting or something. But that's, I always enjoyed that kind of thing the most, finding something that was small. Most people probably have that idea of finding something small, like Amazon when it's at 3 and then it just blew up or whatever. But it's exciting to find something before it was big, or before it's almost like you're in on a little secret, and then your secret blows up at some point.
And I believe the average person will never get an opportunity with Google, with Facebook, things of that nature. No. So if you're going to have to find those small companies, people like us that are working out of their garage and just getting started. But, I do think God gives us all intuition, and if we keep working at it, we do find those opportunities. They're coming up every day.
Is this company you're talking about a private or public company?
It is a private company right now. We hope to go public in the not too distant future. All the guys that are involved in it all are working their butts off, working real hard. It's a big dream for all of them. Running into a lot of obstacles when you have a company that was nothing a few years ago, and now you have a new technology and you're trying to develop it, and you're always running out of money, never enough money.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing.
Maybe you let us know once it goes public and people can look at it.
Oh, definitely do that. Do that.
Let me just move on. We don't have a lot of time left, but I wanted to deal with at least a couple other things. And one of the things that you had talked about before we got on is you mentioned you had I guess a health challenge of some kind, and you were able to overcome it. And I wanted to hear a little bit about how you were able to do that and what it was.
So, it was the fall of 2010, and I just felt absolutely horrible. Self-employed, I'd work all day, I'd go home, and I'd just crash. I couldn't function. I gained a massive amount of weight, and so I went to the doctor, did all the normal testing, and they say, "Oh, you're fine, you're fine." I'm like, "Please don't tell me I'm fine. I'm not fine."
Yeah, you're right. You know it.
Yeah. So then I just went on a search, and fortunately, a friend of mine said, "You might want to check this woman out, and if anybody has any health issues they can't figure out." Her name is Sherry Rogers. She's an MD. She's absolutely brilliant.
Sherry Rogers?
Yeah. Sherry Rogers. She's brilliant. And I read, before she'll even talk to you, she wants you to do, your homework. So I had to read 3 books, and I had to read a couple years for her newsletters. She says, to really do this properly, she goes, I don't want to waste your money. And I did it. And then we did the testing. It wasn't cheap, to be honest with you, but fortunately I was in a position to handle it. It wasn't covered by regular insurance. And she says, there's something extraordinary going on in your body. I could tell you, you have the testing of a healthy man. And she gave me 4 things to test, and one of them was mold. Turns out I had a massive mold problem in my house that got me incredibly sick. And then, I went on a journey, a long journey, and now it's 2020. I feel fantastic. I've lost 50 pounds. Yeah. I got incredible energy. My autoimmune problem is gone. I had an inflammation problem gone. So I'm making a real long story short.
Well, can you say the general principle of how you were able to overcome it?
I will tell you this. There's 2 things you have to do to be healthy. You have to detox. We live in a world where we got constant toxins in our body. We don't realize it, but we have the most toxic society in the history of the world.
Wow.
and so there's constant toxins, number 1. So you got to detox. And number 2, you have to supplement your diet. You got to take supplements. You have to find out, okay, what am I lacking? What do I need? And take good supplements.
Are you saying because, and I've heard this before, but are you saying because the food we have isn't necessarily what it once was? Is that the reason you're saying we need a supplement?
Yeah, that's part of it. Also, genetically, we're all flawed to a certain extent. So for me, when we looked at my genetics, it turned out that my body did not have the system to detoxify working properly, and that was in my genetics. So we had to do things extraordinarily for me, maybe not for you, to get my body to work properly. Okay. I will tell you, if you read a couple of Sherry Rogers' books, she always says that any book you read of hers will help everyone. But it's a great story.
Are her books on Amazon, Sherry Rogers?
Yeah. You spend $20, you'll get a book, and you'll learn such an amazing amount. It'll be really,
or her website, I suppose. I don't want to just pump Amazon, the big company, but maybe she has her own website, probably.
I believe her newsletter is called True Wellness off the top of my head.
Okay.
But it's Sherry Rogers.
Okay. Very good. And so now it's completely different. So at this point in your life, your health is great, and
yeah, I'm getting better and better. Still working on it. Where I always say I want optimal health.
Sure.
I believe God puts us on this earth on a journey, and I want to make sure that I get to the end of my journey and I find, I do what God wants me to do in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that leads me into kind of like the final thing I wanted to talk about, which was you were talking. What's the word? I can't think of the term here, but basically spiritual health, let's call it, or mental health, or what have you, character. There's lots of different words we can use for that. You wanted to talk a little bit about that and maybe how it is that you were able to find better spiritual, mental health, well-being, so to speak.
Yeah. And we live in a society where they make you think that, okay, if you get, people look at you 500,000 times on YouTube, you are, going to find fulfillment. And I just don't think that's the case. I just find, what I do every day, I spend a half hour in the morning and a half hour in the evening. I just get quiet, get quiet, and I let God talk to me, and it's not, something where, if I can get an email every day from my creator saying, okay, Joe, you need to do this today at this time, boy, that'd be nice and easy. Yeah. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. And I found that the greatest things in my life come from just, letting it happen slowly and just working at it day after day after day, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
So is there any technique you do, or are you silent and kind of let the still voice come into you?
Foundation of Human Understanding has a silent prayer.
Yeah, I know that as well, and I've used that for many, many years. And I don't know if "used" it is the correct term here, but people know what I mean. But I think it's beautiful. and it's helped me a lot. I mean, I've come a long way from where I was before I was doing that. So I recommend that as well. I think it's awesome. I'll put a link in our description here too.
And no matter where you are in life, you got another level to go.
Yeah.
I always look, I'm 56. When I was 50, I'm like, I didn't know so many things I know now.
Yeah.
And when I was 40, I knew less. And I find that you're always growing. And, if you're living life properly, you're always growing. And in our society, we're told, certain things, make you happy, give you contentment. With me, it's been the complete opposite. I find that, most of that stuff, I've been very blessed in my life monetarily. I know that doesn't give me, happiness. What gives me happiness is the way I created it, the things I've done, the things that I've built, and then doing something good with the money, not going and living on an island or driving a big fancy car and, having the trophy wife. It's more, doing something, that God wants me to do in my journey with it.
Absolutely. Now, I haven't asked you, but are you married, your family or anything like that? Or?
I'm a single guy. Never been married. I'm a single guy.
Never had a desire or just?
No, I would. I'd still love to. If the right situation did arise, this is the journey God put me on.
Yeah.
And I'm not fighting it. I'm going to take it, where it wants me to go.
It seems like you're content as is. So if something could either be added or not, your life would still be good.
Yeah, I will say I'm content to a certain extent. I have a big dream now, and my big dream is that if all the business I've invested in, gold and silver, and this company I told you with the new technology, I've got pretty big investments in them. If it goes according to plan, I want to do an online network, like a 60 minutes, but with real truth. I spent my whole life, making money, working hard, making money. And I don't say that in an egotistical manner, but I always wondered, like, what does God want me to do with it? Now I understand, like, okay, this is it, Joe. You're strong enough, you're mature enough, you're centered enough. Now you could do something good with the money, not, something that the world tells you should be doing with. Well, so that's my hope.
I hope you do something like that sooner rather than later for the sake of the rest of us in the world. Because, I think it's needed right now. And one thing I really enjoy talking with people like yourself who've done something with their lives, there's kind of like some people are maybe, I don't know, let's say money people or whatever. Other people are more like activist people. But I don't see why we can't do both. Why? And in fact, it's a lot easier, obviously. I mean, we try to compete. This could be a whole nother conversation, but we try to compete with the Facebooks and the YouTubes of this world. And a lot of times people have trouble competing with them because they have no money to compete with them. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the money to me is a big component here. It's capitalism. You need to take capital and use it, so that you can compete with these guys. So I think it's great to see, somebody who has money and has an interest in activism. Because to me, those things, I think they should be married in some way anyway. If we really want to do good things in this world. It always includes doing something for other people to kind of help other people out. And
I think
go ahead.
We're at a very special time in history.
Yeah.
All the technology is there to reach people, very inexpensively.
Yeah.
All the work has been done on finding the truth. There's 9 million people out there who think like us, who've done the work, but there's not a big stage for them.
Yeah.
So I always wondered, like, okay, what is God, I have this business, I worked and I worked and worked. And I'm like, what's he preparing me for? I'm building this skill set in business. I'm not a guy like you to do interviews and stuff. That's not my strong point. I'm more of the business guy.
Right.
And I think, okay, maybe this is it. I could find all these people who have great stories to tell and get the real truth out there to use my business knowledge. And that's my hope.
And in terms of what's needed, I often ask what's needed in the world. There's a lot of things that are saturated. This market is saturated, this market. Well, one thing obviously is not saturated is the market for truth within the media. The media has done such a great job of just putting out the bad and holding up the good. I mean, even myself, yes, I'm a small potatoes guy out there, but I've had stuff. I've been reporting on COVID and different things, natural health field. I've had several of my videos pulled down by YouTube, and I've had to fight them, left and right. So I know what it's like, and I know how bad it is. There's a curtain, it's like an iron curtain. Remember the iron curtain with Soviet Union? It was like an iron media curtain. So yeah, that's definitely a place that imagine if we could change one thing in this world, if we could take the media and open it up to more truth, it would have such an impact. Because I go to the store and I see people with their masks on, and they're listening to what they hear out there. And the media, I can see it starting to break on people. It's starting to break through a little bit, but the media still has a lot of control. So we have a long way to go. So I wish you the best in that, Joe. I really do.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring that up. So I'm in the midst of writing a business plan right now, and I'm doing it to get people who can help me build this organization. And the thing that I start out with is, could you imagine if we were able to have, just for 1 month, a major media source to get our message out, how we can change the world? We only need a month. That's all we need.
I know.
and I think, you know what? I think it's time. I think it's time.
Oh yeah, it's time. I can see the breakthrough, even with COVID and the masks and all the lies. That's just one aspect. But I can see certain breakthroughs. I watch people when I go out. I go in this, was out there yesterday looking around. I was in the stores, and I was, I could even see, you go to the bank, you go to different things. I could see, even with that, I could see a little bit of breakthrough, like a few less people with their masks on, than before. Everybody was kind of taking all the stuff for a while, and now there's like this little breakthrough. And I think that's happening in many areas now. So, and I see voices. I see new voices coming out there. Black, white, different men, women. I see people that aren't even born in America, people that have come to America. Some of the best voices, by the way, I did a video on that. Some of the best voices are people who have come to America because they really appreciate what we have here. And some of us who have lived here, we've gotten a little bit jaded or something, but they know what they had in these other countries, and they know what America offers. And we still offer, as you said earlier, the most amazing country in the world with so many opportunities. So anyway, I want to thank you so much for being with me, Joe. It was really a pleasure to interview you. And you said that you were going to give out maybe an email if anybody wanted to get in touch with you.
Yeah, if anybody wants to get in touch with me, it's printerjoe@comcast.net. I'll spell that out. printerjoe@comcast.net. It'd be my pleasure to help anybody any way I can.
Excellent. Did I miss anything that you wanted to say that you felt like I wanted to say before we ended?
I want to thank you for having me, Patrick. It was a lot of fun. Don't get to have conversations like this very often. So I really appreciate you allowing me to do this.
It was an honor to have you on. And I first talked to Greg, because I know Greg, your friend Greg. Greg was nice enough and humble enough, let's say, to say, hey, I know a lot about metals, and I could talk to you a lot about it. But Joe is like on another level. As far as people who've done this as a hobby, you've taken this very, very seriously. He said you should talk to Joe, and Joe will fill you in and fill the audience in on what they need to know. And I think you've done that today.
Greg's a great friend of mine. Great friend of mine.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I really like Greg. So anyway, thanks for being with me. And I'm going to just close out. So thanks for being with me. And I think you might have to see yourself out of here. But yeah, I'll let you do it on your end. But thanks so much for being with me today. I really hope we talk in the future. And it was definitely my pleasure to speak with you.
And you'll send me a copy of this when you get it done?
Absolutely. You got it.
Thank you very much. Take care now. Bye-bye.
All right, that was Joe Grande, and really Joe knows precious gold and precious metals really, really well, as you can tell by listening to him. Very nice man as well. So this is the first time I was able to actually talk with him, and thanks to my friend Greg again for letting me know about Joe. And I want to do, as I said, with the Old School podcast, I want to deal with successful, natural health, success, and freedom. Those are my mantras. Those are the three pillars of Old School. And you go to oldschoolus.com to find out more. But I really want to deal with success right now because we've been held down so much by COVID and all the rioting and stuff going on. It's just ridiculous. It's time for America to succeed. If there are any subject matter or people that you'd like me to interview regarding the idea of success and how we can have more of it as Americans and people living around the world, then feel free to let me know. You can always send me an email, info@oldschoolus.com, info@oldschoolus.com. With that said, thank you so much for being with me today. I look forward to seeing you again on the next podcast. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Old School with Patrick Rooney. Visit oldschoolus.com to find out more about natural health, success, and freedom. See you next time.